0. As soon as Li Daoyuan finished his words, those alchemists who were green in color or had no change in color walked down from the crystal platform in a daze. Some of the leaders in the stands sighed with regret. Although the first round of competition was simple, nearly 100 people had been eliminated. Ji Yun sat on the platform and watched Xiao Yan and the other two easily pass the first round. His tensed heart was relieved. In the previous rounds of the Spirit Sky City, at least one person had been eliminated. This time, there was actually a 0 error. That's right, those alien realm soul alchemists are all present. 8 of them have answered the question correctly, and 5 of them are alchemists from the Spiritual Sky City. Hua Yan looked at the information gathered on the crystal platform and nodded with a smile. Li Daoyuan wasn't really excited when he heard this. The first round was just a small test. He wouldn't be able to compare with Xiao Yu's true strength. If Xiao Yu and the others couldn't even pass this round, that was why they didn't deserve to be called the outstanding generation of the Spiritual Sky City. The second round is to test your control over the flames. What are you preparing? Li Daoyuan looked at Hua Yan and asked. The latter was in charge of preparing the first and second round of tools. He had heard about Li Zan's appearance. This second round would not be simple. The previous round's simulation target was an ancient holy beast. This time, I'm going to prepare a person. Hua Yan smiled and said, in the past, I heard about it from my teacher. When he was young, he received guidance from a master. A few days ago, I specifically asked my teacher for guidance. When I asked that master, my teacher happened to have an image of that master from back then. It just so happens to be the requirement for this round of competition. Teacher, Li Daoyuan stroked his beard and nodded. Sure, since you are a master who has given guidance to your teacher. Naturally, you are shockingly powerful and possess an unparalleled aura. You are indeed a good opponent. He and Hua Yan were brothers. The strength of their two teachers had naturally reached an unfathomable level. The expert who had guided their teacher must be even stronger. However, I heard from teacher that the expert seems to have fallen for a long time. Hua Yan sighed and took out a crystal bead and gave it to Li Daoyuan. Li Daoyuan could not help but be shocked when he heard that. He said in disbelief, even those strong people will die? Li Daoyuan exhaled softly when he saw Hua Yan nod his head. He calmed the waves in his heart and stood up. He looked at the many competitors who were ready to participate. The low and deep voice that was mixed with powerful origin monarch cheese resounded by everyone's ears. In the second round of the competition, all the competitors will use their own flames to simulate the image that they have displayed. The charm and aura of the contestants are getting closer and closer. We will choose 30 people to enter the final round of the pill competition. The reason why we only choose 30 people is because we have perfect control over the flames. It will be a great help to the concoction of pills. I believe that all of you have experienced it personally. Xiao Yan let out a low sigh upon hearing this. In this round of controlling the flames, they would have no choice but to use the monarch flame. Participants like them, especially those who were above the alien realm soul, would definitely attract the attention of many people, hoping that the combination of the two types of monarch flames would be able to hide it from everyone. After saying that, Li Daoyuan placed the crystal ball in front of him into the groove of the crystal platform. In an instant, the crystal ball shone brightly, and then a huge image appeared on a big screen in front of the square. On the screen, a handsome man with long hair draped over his shoulders, with one hand on his back, extended his other hand forward. On his palm, a ball of flame flowed slowly like an ancient vine. The flame seemed to be filled with endless vitality. The man had a smile on his face. However, that aura seemed to have broken through the screen and pressed down on everyone's heart. It made some of the weaker people's breathing quicken. Xiao Yan took a closer look and his pupils suddenly shrank to the size of a needle. Although the image of the man on the screen was very young, Xiao Yan would never forget that qi. Teacher. Looking at the high-spirited Yi Tianchen on the screen in the distance, Xiao Yan opened his mouth and a myriad of emotions crossed his heart. Although it was just an image, it looked so amiable at the moment. Now, the time is twice as long as the first round. After the time was up, everyone immediately stopped. Our Elders Guild will inspect the seals and announce the results of the competition. Li Daoyuan's dignified gaze swept across the entire venue. This caused the somewhat noisy venue to quieten down. After that, he gently waved his sleeve. The hourglass in the middle of the venue had already been poured over. The flow of the sand was much slower than before. The second round of the pill competition's flame control begins. Li Daoyuan's indifferent voice rang in the ears of the over 300 competitors. At the same time, over 300 different flames appeared in the hands of these alchemists. Wow! The flames of different colors suddenly filled everyone's eyes. Looking at the over 300 different flames in the venue, everyone in the audience felt a wave of incomparable shock. Immediately following that, a wave of loud cheers that could topple mountains and overturn seas continuously sounded out from the audience seats. Yu Er's flame is the purple patterned profound flame that was extracted from the body of a high-grade heavenly beast, the purple patterned profound tiger. Although it is extremely violent, its power is extremely powerful. Furthermore, Yu Er has already completely tamed it over the past few years. This round will definitely be able to suppress that. Li Zan, the middle-aged man in the black robe, laughed when he saw the purple flame on Xiao Yu's hand. Li Daoyuan smiled in shame when he heard this. Xiao Yu said he was my student, but as a teacher, I have never helped him in the past few years. I am so ashamed. The middle-aged man smiled and said, President Li said that Xiao Yu has been obsessed with the Tao of Dan since he was young. To be accepted by Chairman Li as a student, this Xiao is already extremely grateful. Hua Yan smiled and nodded. Speaking of which, as teachers, we are not very competent. Gushin's flames were also obtained by his family. I didn't do much either. An old man wearing a brocade robe not far away chuckled when he heard Hua Yan's words. He cupped his hands towards Hua Yan and said, Why would Chairman Hua say such a thing? Just like what sect leader Xiao said, the Zhou family is already grateful that Chairman Hua took them in as students. As the few of them spoke, the competition in the venue had already begun without a sound. Li Zan held the blue flame that was suspended in his hand. The power contained within it caused some of the surrounding participants' flames to tremble. No matter how hard their owners tried to activate it, the fire was no longer fierce. Li Zan sneered when he saw this. He looked at the image on the large screen in the distance. His 5 fingers moved quickly. As his fingers changed, the blue flame also began to tremble. Yu Chang looked at the pale yellow flame in his hand and felt proud of himself. As the most powerful genius of Ningxing City, his flame was naturally extraordinary. It was the sun-swallowing flame that was taken from the middle-rank heavenly beast sun-swallowing leopard's body. The sun-swallowing leopard was in existence at the peak of the pyramid within the middle-rank heavenly beast. The power of the origin flame within its body was naturally extremely powerful. With the strength of 2 monarch spirit warriors, Yu Chang was strong enough to fight any ordinary 6 monarch spirit warrior. Xiao Yan sighed and clenched his fist. A golden red flame appeared out of thin air. The moment the flame appeared, Xiao Yan immediately threw himself into the flame to control its qi. The appearance of the monarch flame, which was the supreme monarch flame of all flames, would definitely cause all flames to worship it. If such a thing really happened, Xiao Yan would be able to escape immediately. Seeing the flame qi in his hand disappear very quickly, Xiao Yan couldn't help but let out a deep breath. He looked at the screen in the distance and began to control the flame with excitement. Beside him, Yu Chang looked at the majestic sun-swallowing flame in his hand with an ashen face. He didn't know what was going on, but the flame was extremely weak. It even trembled a little, making it difficult for him to control it with ease. What exactly is going on? Yu Chang's originally relaxed mood instantly became tense. His forehead was already covered in sweat. Exclusive theater, please add QQ group 5779430. 0. The middle-aged man sitting next to Hua Yan looked at the image on the big screen not far away and said in surprise, This senior. Could he be the famous alchemy saint Yu Tianchen from 10,000 years ago? Hua Yan smiled lightly and looked at the middle-aged man. How did Sect Master Xiao recognize him? The middle-aged man pondered for a moment and said, According to the secret records of my family, this alchemy saint once possessed 2 types of world-renowned monarch flames. One of them was called Thousand Leaves Ancient Monarch Fire. It was shaped like a withered leaf. When it turned into flames, it was like an ancient vine. The Thousand Leaves Ancient Monarch Fire was known as the Eternal Flame. Wherever there were plants, there would be endless life. Its power was boundless. If I didn't see the flame in this senior's hand, I really wouldn't be able to recognize it. That's right, it's the senior from 10,000 years ago. I heard from my teacher that the senior at that time had just obtained the Thousand Leaves Ancient Monarch Fire. He was the center of attention of all the regions, and was invited to become an elder of the Middle Domain's pill world. His teacher was a disciple of the Middle Domain's pill world. He had received guidance from the old senior by chance. In the end, for some unknown reason, his senior had left the Middle Domain's pill realm alone because of a disagreement. 100 years later, he died in the war with the mysterious ultimate saint expert in the forest domain. Hua Yan sighed softly, his voice was filled with regret. The middle-aged man nodded silently. He obviously knew about this matter. That senior, who did he fight with? Back then, with the strength of that senior, with just 2 monarch flames and an unparalleled saint pet, even a supreme saint wouldn't be able to stop him. Li Daoyuan suddenly said in a low voice. Hua Yan shook his head and said, "The matters of the supreme saint realm is not something we can understand." 10,000 years had passed. The Saint Meteorite Mountain that the senior transformed into had completely vanished a few years ago. Everything had returned to dust. When Li Daoyuan said this, the few of them sighed and fell silent. Xiao Yan stared at the image of Elder Yi on the screen. Compared to what he had seen in the illusion realm, the image here was filled with a sense of pride. It was as if he could vaguely feel the monstrous qi that was as sharp as a sword. It was unlike an illusion that had experienced 10,000 years. It had long washed away its arrogance, and only the vicissitudes of life could be seen through. Looks like when teacher was young, he also had a period of disobedience and disobedience. Xiao Yan sighed in his heart. He slowly closed his eyes, and Yi Tianqian's appearance gradually appeared in his mind. After following Elder Yi for so long, Xiao Yan did not even need to look at the image. He could already simulate Elder Yi's figure with flames. Wah wah wah, Xiao Yan's 5 fingers moved continuously. The crimson gold flame was bouncing agilely in his hand. Under the control of his soul power, the shape of the flame gradually turned into a human figure. In terms of experience in controlling flames, Xiao Yan had been playing with fire in the lower realm for a longer time than the alchemists of the pill competition. Needless to say, he had a lot of experience in controlling the balance of flames. It was a piece of cake for Xiao Yan. After all, he could find a balance between 2 different monarch flames and fuse them into the Buddha Fury Fire Lotus. It was not difficult for him to control the flames. Furthermore, the simulated image was his teacher. Among these contestants, he was the only one who had seen Elder Yi's true face. This round had given Xiao Yan a unique advantage. Damn it! Li Lin looked at the flames in his hand that had failed to recover from the setback. His face was so gloomy that it seemed like water could drip down from it. He looked coldly at Li Zan, who was not far away from him. The latter was using all of his strength to control the blue flame. A majestic aura was emitted from the flame, causing some of the alchemists nearby to feel as if their flames had suffered a heavy blow. Some of them were dispirited, and some were even. Some of the weaker flames were extinguished, and it was useless no matter how the participants tried to activate them. This bastard! Li Lin gritted his teeth and stared at Li Zan. He was so angry that his entire body was trembling. Although there was no clear rule, every year, when the second round of the pill competition was about to begin, all the participants would put away the pressure contained in the flames to avoid affecting the flames of others. Although Li Lin's flames weren't weak, they were obviously weaker than Li Zan's blue flames. Facing the pressure of the blue flames, his flames felt as if they had encountered a high-grade ferocious beast. It was trembling and trembling. Li Lin wasn't the only one affected. The flames of nearly 20 alchemists around him were weakened to varying degrees. Everyone looked at Li Zan angrily, but the latter ignored them and continued to control his flame. His fingers moved quickly, and a flaming human figure gradually took shape. Li Daoyuan and the others who were far away also noticed this. Although they were angry, there was nothing they could do. This was also the second round of the competition. In the third round, only 30 people from the pill competition could enter the competition. Therefore, the second round of eliminations was of utmost importance. With the help of the flame's pressure, the other participants would be at a loss for what to do. It was the best opportunity to eliminate the participants. I'm afraid that fellow's flames are even stronger than Xiao Yu's. Hua Yan, who was observing Li Zan's flame, said in a low voice. There was a trace of shock in his voice. Li Daoyuan pursed his lips and said in a low voice. It's impossible for an ordinary minor mercenary corps to be able to cultivate such a flame. This guy must have a very powerful background. After saying that, Li Daoyuan's eyes swept across the entire scene. He saw Xiao Yu and the others carefully controlling the flame in their hands and nodding their heads. After that, they looked at Xiao Yan, who was standing in the distance. It has already taken shape. Li Daoyuan was about to look away when he suddenly saw Yu Cheng, who was standing beside Xiao Yan. He had an ugly expression on his face as he controlled the weak flame in his hand to simulate the image with great difficulty. Li Zan is the only one who has released the pressure of the flame. This guy is so far away from Li Zan. How could he be affected? Li Daoyuan frowned. Due to the end of the first round, the man beside Xiao Yan had been eliminated. Only Yu Cheng was the closest to Xiao Yan. Li Daoyuan couldn't help but cast his glance at Xiao Yan. The golden flames didn't give off any pressure. It was as if it was just an ordinary flame under Xiao Yan's skillful control. The human figure formed by the flame became more and more vivid. Li Daoyuan let out a surprised sound. After thinking for a while, he decided not to use his soul power to carefully observe Xiao Yan's flame. It was now the critical moment. If something were to happen to Xiao Yan, it would cause his heart to tremble. It wouldn't be worth it. As the sand on the top of the hourglass decreased, the pill competition had entered a white-hot stage. Almost all the participants who had the ability to control the flames had reached the last step. The participants who had the weaker flames in their hands had gloomy expressions on their faces. They wanted to cry but had no tears. Ji Yun let out a long breath. His hands were full of sweat. Spirit Sky City had good luck this time. Fu Zan and Bai Qian had successfully controlled the flame to the last step. Next, they only needed to give the person a similar aura to that of a human. However, only 30 people could be nominated for the third round. Ji Yun really did not have the confidence. The only thing he could rely on was... It seemed like only Xiao Yan could do it. It's done. He looked at the flaming humanoid in his hand. It was almost identical to Elder Yi on the screen. Due to the characteristics of the monarch flame, every joint of the flaming humanoid was flowing with flames. It seemed to be full of spirituality, as if it was carved out of a knife. Next, give me your aura. Xiao Yan pondered for a moment. His teacher was the strongest person in the world when he was alive. If he used an ordinary aura to infuse it, it would only bring shame to his reputation. Thinking of this, Xiao Yan seemed to have made up his mind. He looked at his chest. That was where the prestige power spell was located. The only thing that could be matched with the chi of the top experts in this world was the chi of the fighting monarch. Although the strength of this fighting monarch was extremely weak in the great world, the emperor chi condensed in the fighting chi continent was not any weaker than the saint chi, let alone the chi of intimidation of a higher level. The fighting monarch contained a mighty aura that looked down upon the world, not one bit inferior to the power of the great world. Back then, Xiao Yan was merely at the level of the fighting monarch, and he had broken into the underground black world of the crimson fire flame wolf. When he encountered the fire dragon that the Xiao Ao had transformed into when it was alive, the emperor's aura within his body erupted. After absorbing the sacred aura of the fire dragon, he encountered the azure ancient profound bird of the guardian of the forest domain, which collided with Elder Yi's soul force. The overflowing chi continued to merge with the sovereign chi in Xiao Yan's body until it clashed with the few holy beast-level soul bodies in the illusion realm. Finally, the sovereign chi broke through the shackles and condensed into the prestige power spell. Although the prestige power spell could only withstand the suppression of an emperor cultivation level warrior due to Xiao Yan's strength and the strength of his soul, the chi it contained was the true sovereign chi, which was the saint chi of a great world. If this saint chi was injected into the flame humanoid, it would definitely be comparable to the chi of a true Yi Tianchen. Most of the participants can simulate the shape of the image with flames, but the difficulty of this round is that they need to infuse the chi into the simulated human, making it more realistic, just like seeing a real person. Hua Yan leaned back in his seat and looked at everything in the arena as he spoke slowly. How can these kids experience the strength of the old senior? In the end, I'm afraid the chi of monarch emperor or emperor cultivation will be at its peak, the middle-aged man said in a low voice. The so-called chi was to use the origin monarch chi in his body to simulate the chi of an expert. Borrowing the high compatibility between the soul and the flame, it would allow the origin monarch chi to enter the flame. In order to meet the requirements, one could only use one's soul energy to sense it. The 30 people with the strongest senses would enter the next round. However, these participants were no more than 20 years old. How could they possibly experience the power of a true powerhouse? Don't say that, Sect Master Xiao. Li Daoyuan smiled and said, I never wanted them to simulate the power of a true expert. The basic requirement of simulating it is that their qi has come into contact with the qi of a true expert, or even integrated with it. With their age, naturally, they can't force it. The ancient holy beast that was revealed last time, the blue flame lightning rhino, was a true high-grade holy beast. The final participant that obtained first place only managed to simulate the aura of a high-grade heavenly beast. The middle-aged man nodded and looked at the distant Xiao Yu, who had a solemn expression on his face. He said softly, Xiao Yu can definitely simulate the qi of a monarch cultivation warrior. Hua Yan, who was standing next to him, smiled. The middle-aged man's strength had reached the peak of monarch cultivation. As the son of the middle-aged man, Xiao Yu had naturally integrated the qi of the middle-aged man into his body. It should be a piece of cake for him to simulate the qi of a monarch cultivation. Taking a deep breath, Xiao Yan slowly closed his eyes. His soul power surged out from between his brows, completely wrapping around the human-shaped flame in his hand. Then, he started to sense the prestige power spell in front of his chest. His soul power covered his chest, and he could vaguely feel a bottomless black hole. Waves of terrifying qi could be felt coming from the black hole. Soul energy entered the black hole. In an instant, a dark golden word suddenly appeared in Xiao Yan's mind. The word was floating with an endless flow of qi. As the word trembled, it caused the surrounding space to tremble, as if it was going to shatter the heaven and earth. Power. Under the senses of Xiao Yan's weak soul, this word seemed to be able to suppress the endless blue sky. A terrifying qi was emitted from it, like a sharp sword that could shatter the space, causing people to tremble in fear. Without any hesitation, Xiao Yan's soul energy turned into a ray of light. It struck the dark golden word at lightning speed, causing the word to tremble slightly. An endless amount of terrifying qi was unleashed. It was like a violent storm that almost destroyed Xiao Yan's soul. The moment the qi was released, it was pulled by the soul force. It was instantly injected into the flame in Xiao Yan's hand. In an instant, the dancing flame suddenly flashed with a trace of light, and a trace of terrifying pressure slowly formed. Li Zan took a deep breath, and the majestic origin monarch qi in his body began to churn crazily. It flowed along his special meridians and gathered in the palm of his hand that was holding the flame. Li Zan's eyes swept across the big hall. A trace of a cold smile flashed across the corner of his mouth. According to what he knew, Li Daoyuan, Hua Yan, and even Xiao Yu's father Xiao Wang were all monarch cultivation warriors. In other words, Xiao Yu, who was his strongest opponent, could simulate the most powerful qi. It was the qi of a monarch cultivation warrior. If that was the case, then he would be the first in this round without any suspense. After all, he had the qi of a heavenly sovereign warrior. Bang! The majestic origin monarch qi in Li Zan's hand suddenly rushed out. At the same time, a sharp qi was unleashed from his body. Combined with his origin monarch qi, it was injected into Yu Tianxin's body, which was simulated by the blue flame. The moment this qi appeared, the flames that were barely burning in the hands of the surrounding people were extinguished as if they had been struck by a storm. Even the flames that had been simulated by some of the contestants in the distance suddenly disappeared. Li Zan saw this and only chuckled, no longer caring about the gloomy faces of the contestants. This is the aura of the heavenly sovereign expert. The experts on the judges' seats felt the sudden eruption of aura and their expressions changed slightly. Li Daoyuan frowned and suddenly sneered, I finally know who this little thing is. Since his surname is Li and he possesses the aura of the heavenly sovereign expert, there is a high chance that he is the third chief of the mercenary alliance, Li Xianfeng's seed. Li Xianfeng? Is he the old thing that you had a conflict with back then? Hua Yan frowned when he heard this. Seeing Li Daoyuan nodding his head with a gloomy face, Hua Yan couldn't help but take a deep breath. No wonder Li Zan came to the pill competition of Spirit Heaven Mansion. It was most likely because of Li Xianfeng, the qi of the heavenly sovereign expert. Xiao Yu and the others will definitely lose. Li Daoyuan's face darkened. His fist violently smashed onto the crystal platform in front of him, causing numerous cracks to appear on the solid crystal platform. This round will not decide anything. The third round of pill concoction will be the highlight, Hua Yan smiled bitterly. He comforted Li Daoyuan and at the same time, he comforted himself. When Li Zan released the aura of the heavenly sovereign expert, some of the powerful experts on the viewing platform immediately sensed it. All of them looked at Li Zan with their mouths agape, and were so shocked that they couldn't speak. In the arena, Xiao Yu looked in Li Zan's direction. His calm expression couldn't help but reveal a trace of shock. The powerful qi unleashed by this fellow had affected him. Many of the low-ranked flames were trembling slightly. Looking at his own flames, Xiao Yu coldly harumphed. His soul force shook, and the effect brought by Li Zan was completely dissipated. Clenching his teeth, Xiao Yu calmed his state of mind once again and focused on his own matters. Xiao Yan, who was fully focused on controlling the Saint Aura into the Monarch Flame, was naturally not affected. He was affected by the impact of the Heavenly Sovereign Aura. The Monarch Flame didn't even tremble a bit. However, with the help of the Saint Aura, Yi Tianchen, who was simulated by the Monarch Flame, became even more alive. Even so, it was as if he was facing a real ultimate saint expert. Under Xiao Yan's skillful control, there was still no trace of Saint Aura leaking out. When everyone's attention was attracted by Li Zan, Xiao Yan finally completed the process of exhausting his mind. Drip drip, as the last drop of sand fell, the second round of the competition finally came to an end under Li Daoyuan's vigorous voice. The moment the time was up, some people relaxed. Most of them were competitors with ashen faces. Busy with work, time limit updated. 1 inch time's up. A long voice resounded throughout the huge venue. At the same time, nearly 100 staff members wearing the same uniform who were guarding the venue walked into the venue together. Each of them held a dark green crystal pearl in their hands as they walked in front of the participants. I have already completed it. It's all because of that fellow. I don't know what he did to extinguish my flames. Suddenly, a somewhat hoarse roar sounded. Everyone looked towards the source of the sound. They saw a young man staring at Li Zan, who was not far away. He shouted at the staff beside him with a hoarse voice. Due to excessive anger, the young man's voice was trembling. When he was only half a step away from success, the weak flame was suddenly ignited by Li Zan's heavenly sovereign qi. The flame was completely extinguished. Such a huge impact made the young man roar at the staff. The staff member in front of the young man looked at the former coldly. The strong qi made the young man freeze. He immediately calmed down and started sweating. He quickly lowered his head and didn't dare to say anything. If you lose, you lose. There is no reason. You can only blame yourself for being weak, the staff member said coldly. Then, he made an inviting gesture and turned around to face another participant. The staff member who came in front of Xiao Yan was an old man with a white beard. When he saw the lifelike human-shaped flame in Xiao Yan's hand, he couldn't help but be slightly shocked. When he first saw this thing, he actually felt a chill from the bottom of his heart. Shaking his head, the old man took out the crystal ball and aimed it at Xiao Yan's flame. A light appeared on the crystal ball and the human-shaped flame in Xiao Yan's hand had been completely copied into it, including the qi contained within. Looking at the over 100 people who left dejectedly, some of the people on the stage cheered and some sighed deeply. Naturally, there were also many leaders who were cursing Li Zan. Bastard! Shi Shen crushed the cup in his hand into pieces. His expression was so gloomy that it could drip water. In the first round, 2 of his 5 teammates were unexpectedly eliminated. In this round, one of them was too close to Li Zan to unleash his flames. At the last moment, because of Li Zan's heavenly sovereign qi. Another man who had gone through great difficulty to simulate the flames was instantly extinguished. He saw 2 of his most proud disciples walk out of the arena with a bitter expression. Shi Shen almost fainted from anger. That trash city and Spirit Sky City, the 3 of them actually succeeded. Shi Shen looked at Xiao Yan, Fu Zan, and Bai Qian with red eyes. His breathing was a little hurried, and the veins on his neck were bulging. He wished he could kill Li Zan to relieve the hatred in his heart. These 3 little guys are really disappointing. Seeing the 3 simulated human-shaped flames being printed out by the staff, Shi Shen's face turned red. Ji Yun let out a sigh of relief as if a heavy burden had been lifted off his shoulders. Immediately after, his mind was once again highly concentrated. Now was not the time to relax. Only 30 people who had passed the test were qualified to enter the third round. There were still more than 150 people left. The test would be the strictest later. Li Lin, Yu Cheng, and that alien realm soul alchemist in Bei'an City didn't succeed. What a pity. Hua Yan looked at the disappearing marks on the crystal platform in front of him and said with regret. It's useless to look at those marks now. Don't just think that the 5 participants from the spiritual Sky City have all succeeded. After the examination, at least one of them will be eliminated. Moreover, even if they pass the test, I don't know if they have any chances of winning against that guy, Li Daoyuan said coldly. Then he stood up and waved his sleeve. The crystal balls in the hands of nearly 100 staff members in front of him flew up into the air and quickly gathered together under Li Daoyuan's control. When Li Daoyuan's enormous soul force swept over nearly 100 crystal balls, Hua Yan also waved his sleeve and a device that was as tall as a person appeared in the middle of the venue. There are a total of 149 crystal balls that are printed, which means that 119 people will be eliminated from this round of testing. The method of testing: we will throw these crystal balls into the device in the center of the field. This device will have a comprehensive evaluation of the aura, quality, and other aspects of the humanoid flame printed on it. The final score will be displayed on the big screen at the side. During this period of time, all participants can also rest to prepare for the next round of pill refinement competition. After saying that, Li Daoyuan's figure flashed and appeared in the middle of the field. More than 100 crystal balls, under the control of the former, quickly arrived beside him. Shoo! Following Li Daoyuan's finger, a crystal ball quickly flew into the device in front of him. As the device flashed, a participant's profile picture appeared on the big screen not far away. At the same time, a string of data also appeared. Xia Huan, 76 points. After the data appeared, Xiao Yan heard a sigh behind him. When the people in the stands saw this, they did not have any intense performance. According to the previous year's practice, 76 points was not enough to enter the third round of the qualifying round, let alone this year's competition where there were even more monstrous geniuses. Li Daoyuan's eyes only swept across the big screen. Without saying a word, he continued to control the crystal ball into the device. Fu Zan, 78 points. Xiao Yan could only sigh helplessly when he saw this number. He turned around and saw Fu Zan sitting down with a gloomy face. No one knew what he was thinking. In the blink of an eye, more than 30 people had passed. The highest score was only 85 points. This made the originally excited audience a little annoyed. They could not see the high score for a long time. Li Daoyuan also slightly frowned, and put another crystal ball in. In a flash of light, Li Zan's profile picture appeared on the big screen. Immediately after, a string of numbers that shocked everyone appeared. Li Zan, 99 points. Hiss. When they saw this number, everyone subconsciously sucked in a breath of cold air. Before anyone could react, Li Zan had already started laughing out loud. Soon after, cheers that could topple mountains and overturn seas came from a region belonging to the mercenary corps of spiritual Sky City. Mighty young master is number 1. Show that group of highly regarded alchemists the strength of our mercenary corps. Damn it. Li Daoyuan's eyes swept across the area where the mercenary corps was located. When he saw the 2 middle-aged men sitting in the crowd, his expression changed slightly. Under his enormous soul power, the strength of these 2 middle-aged men was not any weaker than his. Li Xianfeng is really generous. He sent such a powerful person to protect his grandson. Gritting his teeth, Li Daoyuan waved his hand and another crystal ball entered the device in front of him. 99 points. This guy called Li Zan is really a genius, Hua Yan patted his head and said with a headache. The previous champion was only 92 points in this round, but this guy actually got close to 100 points. Xiao Yu, 95 points. Li Daoyuan sighed when he saw Xiao Yu's score. Xiao Yu's performance was already very good. 95 points was somewhat out of his expectation, but Li Zan was much stronger than Xiao Yu. When Xiao Yu saw his own score, he pursed his lips and didn't say anything. However, the fighting spirit in his eyes that refused to admit defeat was getting stronger and stronger. With these two's results, there were still some people who were above 90 points left. However, they couldn't arouse the interest of the crowd anymore. Zhou Gushen's result was 92 people. If it was placed in the previous batch, it would be the number 1 score, but it was not enough here. Bai Qian's score was 83 points. Although it was not high, however, it also broke the records of the previous participants in Spirit Sky City. Looking at the remaining 3 crystal balls, Li Daoyuan let out a breath. Until now, he hadn't seen Xiao Yan's result. He didn't know what kind of surprise this mysterious guy would give him. Thinking about this, Li Daoyuan casually pointed his finger, and a crystal ball flew into the device once again. With a flash of light, Xiao Yan's profile picture appeared on the big screen. Xiao Yan. Boom! Just as Xiao Yan's name appeared on the big screen, the device in front of Li Daoyuan suddenly shook. Then, under everyone's shocked gaze, the device exploded. The loud sound attracted everyone's attention. It also covered the complacent roar of the mercenary corps in Spiritual Sky City. Li Zan's wild laughter also stopped abruptly. Temporary benefit. 1 inch it exploded. What's going on? That device actually exploded? When the sound of the explosion faded away, the stands immediately burst into noise. For a moment, all kinds of chattering sounds rushed into the venue, but Li Daoyuan acted as if he didn't hear it. He looked at the broken pieces in front of him and couldn't help but be a little stunned. He waved his sleeve and dispersed the smoke in front of him. Li Daoyuan took a few steps forward and fell into deep thought as he looked at the charred ground. Senior brother, what's going on? Hua Yan and the other judges appeared behind Li Daoyuan. They looked at Xiao Yan's profile picture on the big screen. There was no data behind the profile picture. Hua Yan hurriedly looked at Li Daoyuan. Li Daoyuan shook his head and slowly came back to his senses. He turned to look at the stunned elders and said solemnly, I have presided over the pill competition for 10 years. I have never encountered such a strange thing. But the only thing I can be sure of is that Xiao Yan's result is definitely above Li Zan's. Li Daoyuan's voice had a rare tremble. It was unknown whether it was because of excitement or excitement. This device has a maximum score of 100. I don't know what will happen if it exceeds this score. Or rather, I never thought about it. Someone from the pill competition might surpass this score. Now, it seems like if I exceed 100 points, this device will explode. Li Daoyuan bent over and picked up a residue as he spoke in a deep voice. It's like this. Hua Yan couldn't help but feel happy when he heard this. After that, he let out a sigh of regret. Although it was satisfying to be able to kill Li Zan, this man wasn't an alchemist of Spiritual Sky City. Thinking about it made him feel mixed emotions. Now is not the time to talk about this. This device has exploded. The big screen didn't show any data about Xiao Yan. I think some people will use this as an excuse. Li Daoyuan glanced at Hua Yan. Of course, he knew what Hua Yan meant. He then looked at the big screen not far away. He exhaled and cupped his hands in front of his chest. Everyone has seen it. It is the crystal ball printed by this contestant named Xiao Yan. This device can't withstand the momentum of the flames within, which is why it exploded. Xiao Yan's result was absolutely higher than Li Zan's. This point, everyone should have no doubts about it. A powerful voice resounded across the entire scene, echoing in everyone's ears like a rumbling thunder. I have a question. Just as Li Daoyuan was breathing in his heart, a deep echo suddenly came from the direction of the mercenary corps in Spiritual Sky City. After that, one of the 2 middle-aged men who had been noticed by Li Daoyuan slowly stood up. Do you have any questions? Seeing that it was someone from the mercenary corps in Spiritual Sky City, Li Daoyuan sneered in his heart. As expected, these guys couldn't keep their calm. They couldn't accept the fact that Li Zan hadn't won the first place in this round. The middle-aged man cupped his hands towards Li Daoyuan, cleared his throat, and said with a thunderous voice, I didn't expect that Chairman Li, as the head judge of pill competition, would do such a shameful thing. Li Daoyuan's eyes narrowed, and he looked at the middle-aged man and said coldly, Sir, please explain clearly how I did such a shady thing. The middle-aged man laughed and said, Isn't this obvious? Li Zan's score was the highest before. That so-called genius of yours, Xiao Yu, was also mediocre. In the end, no one was able to suppress Li Zan. It was at this moment that he acted out a scene and purposely destroyed the device. Besides, didn't you say that it was because your score was too high that the device exploded to deceive everyone? Isn't that right, Chairman Li? As soon as the middle-aged man finished speaking, the hundreds of mercenary corps members beside him responded loudly. Some of them even called out Li Daoyuan's name and scolded him for having insider information. So noisy. Li Daoyuan looked coldly at the direction where the mercenary corps of Spirit Sky was located. He shouted with a gloomy face. After that, everyone seemed to have heard a sudden clap of thunder in the sky. Soon after, they saw nearly 100 mercenary corps members of Spirit Sky covering their heads and crying out in pain. When the middle-aged man saw that all the members of the mercenary corps were lying on the ground with faces full of pain, he immediately shouted with a gloomy expression, "Li Daoyuan. What do you mean?" Then he sneered and said, "Could it be that you are angry from embarrassment?" When Li Daoyuan heard this, he coldly snorted and said in a clear voice, "Don't worry, they won't die. I'm just using some means to punish them. These people don't know their status, and they dare to call my name directly. It's already considered merciful that I didn't kill them." After hearing Li Daoyuan's words, the middle-aged man let out a cold snort, but he didn't say anything. "As for what you said about being angry from embarrassment, I do things openly and honorably. Why would I be angry from embarrassment? Li Zan's skill is not as good as others. Anyone with discerning eyes can tell at a glance what you are trying to do by inverting black and white here." Hearing Li Daoyuan's aggressive words, the middle-aged man gritted his teeth and said, "With your soul power, you should know that the qi Li Zan injected into the flame is the qi of a heavenly sovereign. I don't believe that kid called Xiaoyan can surpass Li Zan with anything." Li Daoyuan frowned, and just as he was in deep thought, Xiaoyan had already walked forward and stood behind everyone. He said, "Chairman Li, I have something I want to say to this senior. I hope he can agree to it." Li Daoyuan hesitated for a moment when he heard this. When he saw Xiaoyan's calm expression, he nodded. In his heart, he was also deeply puzzled by Xiaoyan's ability to defeat Li Zan. It might be better to let Xiaoyan explain it now. Xiaoyan took a deep breath. The current situation didn't allow him to hide anymore. If the conflict continued to deepen, he didn't know what he should do to get rid of everyone's doubts. He might as well take this opportunity to explain it clearly. Facing nearly 10,000 people, Xiaoyan wasn't afraid at all. He cupped his hands towards the middle-aged man. His voice was loud and clear. "Senior, don't you know that there is a supreme saint above the heavenly sovereign? With the aura of a supreme saint, I can easily crush a heavenly sovereign no matter what." Supreme saint. As soon as the words came out, it immediately caused a huge commotion in the hall. Countless people looked at Xiaoyan in disbelief. In this era, the ultimate saint expert was almost never born again. Even Li Daoyuan, Hua Yan, who was a mighty warrior, had never seen a supreme saint before. Over the years, the supreme saint had become a symbolic existence in the hearts of most people. "Nonsense! You are just a puny monarch spirit. How can you possess the aura of a supreme saint?" The middle-aged man recovered from his initial shock, and couldn't help but furiously shout out. Xiaoyan heard this and lightly smiled. He looked at Li Daoyuan, who was similarly shocked, and said while staring at the middle-aged man, "I think the leaders of the group have some impression of Xiaoyan's name. He is an 8-year-old alien realm soul alchemist. To be honest, I am the one who broke through to the fighting monarch of lower realm. I have been in the great world for 8 years. This is the reason. Besides, since my soul has reached the alien realm, I have naturally succeeded in cultivating the 3-step soul transfer. Chairman Li once said that the 3-step soul transfer is a legendary method. If it wasn't because I encountered an ultimate saint expert, how could I have successfully transformed it?" Everyone was stunned by what they heard. After that, Li Daoyuan and the others came to their senses. Following Xiaoyan's train of thought, this problem was easily solved. Naturally, the qi of the Supreme Saint had merged into their bodies at that time. When the group leaders heard what Xiaoyan said, they also understood what was going on. They exclaimed as if they had just realized something. No wonder this guy was so outstanding when he was 8 years old. Previously, they had guessed that Xiaoyan had broken through to the fighting monarch of lower realm, but they didn't dare to imagine the success of the 3-step soul transfer. Today, after hearing Xiaoyan admit it himself, they all understood what was going on. When the middle-aged man heard this, he opened his mouth, but he didn't know what to say. He had seen Xiaoyan's information before, and he was surprised that Xiaoyan's talent was so outstanding. He didn't expect Xiaoyan to break through to the next realm with the fighting monarch of lower realm. Besides, although the 3-step soul transfer was a legend, it was still widely known among the alchemists. If it was a true supreme saint, it was indeed possible for him to break through to the next realm. "All right, Uncle He, please sit down. I have lost this round." Just as the middle-aged man was about to say something, Li Zan stood up from behind and said in a clear voice, With this step, the middle-aged man hurriedly took a deep breath. He forced a smile at Li Daoyuan, cupped his hands, and then sat down. Amazing. You really live up to the reputation of the 3-step soul transfer. From now on, you will be my opponent just like Xiao Yu. Although you have won this round, I will definitely show you the difference between the two of you when it comes to concocting pills. With a cold laugh, Li Zan's eyes swept across Xiao Yan and Xiao Yu, who was not far away. He laughed and sat down. When he heard Li Zan's arrogant words, Xiao Yan's mouth revealed a trace of a cold smile. He looked at Xiao Yu. Xiao Yu's facial expression didn't change, only his eyes were burning with fighting spirit.